The best stories that I feel came out of SatAM. As we know, both seasons had some great episodes, some great stories in them. But I have to say that out of season 1, I have to go with Sonic and Sally, Ultrasonic, Sonic and the Secret Scrolls, and of course the pilot, Heads or Tails. The reason I say those episodes is because Sonic and Sally. The one unique thing about season 1 that I think a lot of fans caught up on was the fact that every episode had Sonic's name in it. Because, even though an episode would be focused like entirely on another character or characters, it would still say Sonic, so to kind of indicate, yeah, Sonic's in this episode and everything. But Sonic and Sally, which honestly I think should have been retitled Sonic, Tails and Sally, well, Sonic, Sally and Tails. It was really a good episode because it was Tails who actually was able to deduce and figure out that the Sally that was in Knothole at the time during the episode was not the real Sally. And I really like that because it shows that the innocence of a child can see the truth. I think that's like an old saying, like the innocence of a child can see what's true and what's not. So basically they can see through a lie. And Tails was able to see through this lie that Robotnik had planted in the Freedom Fighters. He was able to see through this lie, and because of that, he was able to help the Freedom Fighters eventually figure out the same thing, and free Sally, the real Sally, and basically free the real Sally from Robotnik's clutches. So yeah, that was a good episode because, like I said, it showed the innocence of how a child's innocence can detect what's real and what's not. At times, what's true and what's a lie. And I also like it because it kind of focused on the relationship that Tails had with Sally. I mean, not with Sonic, but with Sally, which was, kind of unique because usually, if you look at an episode like that, you think it's going to focus on Sonic and Tails' relationship, but it mostly focused on the relationship Tails has with Sally. So that was pretty good. Ultrasonic, I have to say, was a good episode because not only did we get introduced to Uncle Chuck for the first time, but we find out that one of the reasons Sonic has a vendetta against Robotnik is because it's personal, because Robotnik took his Uncle Chuck away from him. And also the fact that, to me, I like it because, with the exception of Uncle Chuck being with them, it's one of the only times you see Sonic and Bunny Rabbit team up. Like I said, with the exception of Uncle Chuck being with them, it's the only time you see Sonic and Bunny team up because usually you see Sonic teaming up with Sally and Bunny, or with just Sally. And I like that pairing too. But for Sonic but to me, this was a good pairing too because these are like two of the strongest members of the team. Bunny because of her strength, because of her cybernetics, and Sonic because of his speed. And that was a unique pairing. And I think in a way that's what fans wanted sometimes, to see those two. And I think that's why it's so popular. That's why fans are so happy sometimes when they see these two characters team up together in the comics sometimes, because they're two of the most unique and most powerful freedom fighters that's in the group. But still, it was a very unique scenario earlier to see that. And I also like the fact that, it's in a way it's kind of like a victory for them, but it's also like a defeat. Because even though they have victory, they also have to sacrifice to get that victory. And a sacrifice is sometimes like a defeat. And that sacrifice was Uncle Chuck losing his control again. Because what happened is they were able to use a power ring to help Uncle Chuck, regain his free will. But as we saw during the episode and at the end of the episode, Uncle Chuck was fighting and eventually lost his battle and his free will back to Robotnik because the power ring's power wasn't, so strong. And it was also the only time I think we've ever seen Sonic cry in an episode. So overall, it was a very decent episode, and definitely set up for something we would see later on in season 2. Sonic and the Secret Scrolls to me was another good episode because I believe, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people would agree with me on this, it was actually the final episode of season 1. Basically, it was the season finale. Because here you had the freedom fighters, with the exception of Tails, going on a journey into this ancient city of Mobius, called, I can't even think of the name right now, Magna, or whatever. I think that's the name. Maga. That's the name of it. And they were looking for these ancient scrolls that had enough power to help them defeat Robotnik, or fight against Robotnik. And I love the scenario, and I love how the scenario of the episode goes. I mean, I love how, you know, the only way they can get there is by flying, and they create this plane called the Freedom Stormer, and Sonic, believe it or not, is the only one that, you know, is, I guess in a way, intelligent enough, if not smart enough, to realize, hey, you fly this thing, no matter how low or how high you fly it, you know, Robotnik's still going to pick you up on his radar. And eventually, I think that's what happens, because as soon as they gain access to, as soon as they gain the secret scrolls, and they figure out the last test is courage, because there's many tests they have to go through, all of a sudden here's Robotnik popping up out of nowhere with the SWAT bots and Snipply. And just like Sonic said, even though he didn't really mention it afterwards, I think in a way Robotnik followed them through his radar. And the reason I also think it's the finale to the first season is because Robotnik, after him sniffing the SWAT bots, are blown off a hill, blown off the mountains, if you will, by a wind tunnel, and Sonic kind of, you know, telling everybody, hey, you know, Robotnik's history, you know, he's toast, he's done. And Bunny's reaction of, you know, like, he's dead, you know, I can't believe that. You know, those are indications to me that this was the season 1 finale, because Robotnik, after him and Snipply climb back up the mountain, he tells Snipply that Sonic is going to pay dearly for what he did and to mark his work. So that's why I believe this was the season 1 finale, and overall it was a generally good episode, because there are a lot of things in there, you know, that, you know, told you it was like the finale to the first season. And of course, Heads or Tails, which was a good episode as well. Of course, it was the pilot, and it was the only rare time that you saw the characters in the early comic book incarnation on the screen, so that was pretty cool. And it really gave you an introduction to who the characters were, even though, like I said, they were the early comic book incarnations. So those are my best episodes out of season 1. Season 2, of course, I think everybody knows, is Blast of the Past, The Void, and all the Doomsday episodes, and all the episodes leading up to Doomsday. The Blast of the Past one was because it was an origin story, and we basically got to meet the king for once. We can finally see Sally's father and who he was, and we also find out exactly what happens to him, and how this whole takeover by Robotnik took place. And we also get to see the Freedom Fighters as kids, and how almost because of the teenage adult Sonic and Sally going back in time and trying to prevent this takeover from happening, how that almost affected their future. And I like how Sally kind of intervenes in the space-time continuum anyway by preventing Rosie from ever leaving Knothole. Because in the original timeline, Rosie does leave Knothole and gets roboticized in the process. But because Sally stuck her nose in that, Rosie does not get roboticized and she remains in Knothole. The Void, because, you know, Sally finally finds out what her father is. We get sort of a prelude and introduction to Doomsday. We get introduced to the person that was originally supposed to rule Mobotropolis, which is Axis Nagus. And also they finally gain the Freedom Fighters list, so I like that one. And of course the Doomsday Project episodes, you know, Cry the Wolf, Druid Hedge, and Spyhog, and Doomsday Project episodes. So, because they had everything. You know, Cry the Wolf, you know, we used the Freedom Fighter list to find the Wolf Pack. Druid Hedge, you know, Tails finally becomes a Freedom Fighter. And also the introduction of the Power Stones, which play a role later on. Spyhog, because Uncle Chuck's, you know, secret gets out, but eventually he tries to keep it a secret later on. And of course, Doomsday Project, you know, what more can you say about it? What more can you say about it? Because it has everything in there. It brings in the Power Stones. Sonic and Sally, you know, use those to destroy the Doomsday Project. Sally, for temporary time, gains Sonic's super speed and I think a little bit of his attitude or personality. And overall, just generally a good episode and finale to the series. Originally, I think was supposed to be a season finale, but it's a finale to the series. Overall, very good, and yeah, to me, those episodes of the season 1 and season 2 are some of the best stories I think ever came out of SatAM. With all respect to the others, those I believe were the best. I truly do. So, keep looking.